the scope of light beyond the reach of Thae? And what could possibly await? And yet we seek it, insatiable. Such is our fate.
On April 7th, 2015, your copy of Dark Souls 2 will be receiving, for free, an update including new NPCs, new enemies, gameplay improvements, new item descriptions, and improved online matchmaking. In other words, the entire experience will be receiving a layer of polish that From Software seems to think it deserves. In addition to patching the core experience that you already own, the improved game and its DLC is being repackaged and re-released for the next-gen systems. If you purchase another copy for your PS4, your Xbox One, or your PC, you'll get all the things I just mentioned, so you'll get the patched experience, plus a few things that will only exist because of your improved hardware. Now, we all know that there were a lot of compromises made for the PS3 and the Xbox 360, so here's hoping for something that is akin to the pre-release graphics we saw in the demo. For this next-gen version, Namco has listed additional upgrades to graphics, sound, and performance, as well as an increase in the maximum online players allowed in a single session from 4 to 6. Essentially, you get your own small army in the game with you. Again, these last two things are only possible because of the improved hardware, so that's what you're paying for if you decide to buy it again for your more powerful systems. Unfortunately, those playing on PC will have to buy it again if they want these improved graphics, and I'll explain that sad fact to you later in the video. But for now, let's look at these improvements they've listed, and let's go a little bit more in depth. Personally, I feel like Dark Souls 2 is one of those good games that's a few small tweaks away from being a great game. Mechanically, it's all there, but I found myself thinking that there are so many little things they could do to polish the experience, and I guess that's what they're doing with Scholar of the First Sin. So when I look at this small list of improvements they plan to make in 2015, I see a window into the ways From thinks their game might be lacking. So let's investigate that, let's try and guess what they think is lacking, and I'm curious to see what you think as well. First up, they're adding new NPCs for, and I quote, an enhanced story experience. This is my favorite part of the announcement. Now, I'm a little bit biased considering I built this channel around great stories that were told in Dark Souls. So far though, the best stories in Dark Souls 2 have been told in the DLC. And that's saying something, because barely any of those DLC stories have been told through NPC interactions and dialogue. Take my last video for example, it's about Alon and the Iron King, and it's a narrative that exists entirely because of item descriptions, the environment, and the characters you fight. I made an 11-minute video out of that, without any in-game dialogue and without any character interaction. And I think it's the best video I've ever made. If you compare these stories in the DLC to those in the core game, you realize that the NPCs in this game lack substance. They have lines and lines of dialogue, yet in my opinion, none of them compare to the stories they told in the DLC. DLC that doesn't even have interactable NPCs, and that says something. That tells me that From is looking to improve this in their patch, and I can still tell the stories about the characters like Lucatiel and Pate, don't get me wrong, but these characters experience little to no character development, they're barely present in Majula, and their stories have no real twists that exist in previous games' characters. Like me, I think that From sees characters as an area the game could improve, and I hope we get characters that are fully fleshed out and fully realized, like so many of the characters deserve to be. The DLC we received proves that From is capable of crafting human characters that we relate to, and I want this to be fully realized with interactable NPCs, so hopefully that's what they have in mind. Second on the list of improvements is that From is looking to augment item descriptions. This is really interesting. There aren't many games that would advertise the fact that they're changing the text of their items, and this shows that they actually realize how important these descriptions are for telling a story. As someone who's trawled through all of these descriptions multiple times, it's fairly obvious that they could be written better. Some don't make as much sense because they've been translated from Japanese, but more than that, so many descriptions end with a question or a statement of confusion. Take the ruler's sword, for example. The great king shut himself away and was reduced to a mere shell. Just what was it he yearned to protect? Take a look for yourself through the descriptions and you'll be amazed how many of them waste space with pointless questions. The purpose of these questions is to direct the player towards seeking an answer, but unfortunately the game itself doesn't offer enough answers. With this upcoming patch, I think this is a problem they should fix. I'd guess that they're not looking to paint a new narrative with these descriptions, rather they really should clarify the murky narrative that already does exist. Oh, and please tell me why Ornstein is in Dark Souls 2, please. Thirdly, gameplay improvements. If I ask you, hey, what do you think needs to be fixed most in Dark Souls 2, what's the first thing you would come up with? What's that one fix that you have in your mind that would be easy to implement but would make a world of difference? I'm really curious to hear your thoughts, and I know a lot of you feel the need to vent, so please write your thoughts down in the comments. We all have our gripes with the game, but there are some fixes that really should just be in there. Personally, I think of two things first up. First, I think of soul memory. Dark Souls 2's online matches us with people who have the same soul memory as us, which was a great system while we were leveling up. But it's completely decimated late-game PvP and replayability. Because of soul memory, late-game PvPers have no real reason to stop leveling up their character, resulting in an endgame full of characters who aren't PvPing with the same stats. This could easily be fixed. What if soul memory was a thing for your first playthrough, but was removed in a New Game Plus playthrough for people who want to PvP? What if you had to opt into soul memory or soul level and decide what one you want to use? I've solved these problems with about 5 minutes of thought, and From Software should too. They've actually listed improved online matchmaking as a fix that they want to implement, so I hope that this is what they're referring to. Another gameplay change, for example, I wish they'd make is removing the ability to buy life gems from Melentia in Majula. Personally, I think that life gems should be a limited item. If life gems were limited, I would value them a lot more. Because they're not limited, I use them between every little fight, and I top myself up between every encounter, and I never use my Estus unless I'm in a battle. As a result, there is no stress that comes from running out of Estus between battles, and the only way you can die in this game is to be overwhelmed in battle and not able to heal in time. You never die from lack of healing. In Dark Souls 1, it was actually an experience to run out of healing, and in Dark Souls 2 that element is completely removed because life gems are infinite. I miss that, and I think that should be changed. There are a bunch more gameplay improvements that they could implement, but let's move on to the fact that they want to add new enemies, which is probably the most exciting thing. In the trailer, we see 2 new encounters. One is with the Red Drake in Hyde's Tower of Flame. Ornstein the Dragon Slayer clearly isn't doing his job here, which is interesting. Still would like a bit more information on him, by the way. And the second encounter is very intriguing. Have a listen.
One drowned in poison, others come with flame. Still another slumbers in the realm of light. Not one of them stood here as you do.
This last line answers some questions. It proves that we are a monarch, just like the kings before us. However, we have done what none of them could have. In the DLC, we united the crowns, gaining our power over undeath. Just like I said in my DLC Explained ending video, there is yet more for our character to achieve, and I'm glad I was right in predicting this DLC because it seems like this is where Dark Souls 2 will get its proper ending. In all of history, not one undead has stood as far as we have, and it seems like this upcoming patch could give us the answers we crave. As for the creature that the character in the trailer is facing, I've no idea what it is. It's spooky though. It has this one red eye that reminds me of Manus from Dark Souls 1, but that's about as far as I go. My best guess is that it's some representation of Manus, just like the Dark Queens were. Moving on to the narrator, if I had to guess, I'd say that it's Aldia, Vendrick's brother. This image of him bears Vendrick's likeness, plus Aldia is reputed to be the more studious, scholarly type. Plus there's this big book in Majula's mansion that is just begging to be an entry portal for some type of DLC. It seems like we are going to learn what the Scholar of the First Sin knows, and if I had to guess what the First Sin was, it would likely be the event that began all of these cycles in the first place. Perhaps the discovery of the Lord Souls, or Seath's betrayal of the dragons, or the linking of the fire. I guess we'll see come April 7th. Overall, I hope this gave you some better idea of what you might want to expect from the patch next year. At the very least, the game you already own will be receiving improvements, and that's nothing to complain about. In regards to buying it again, any promises of graphical improvements have made me wary based on past experiences, and I recommend you be as well. On the other hand, the DLC was incredible for the price, and they are giving you these improvements at no extra costs, where many other companies would release a Game of the Year edition and expect you to buy it again, so it does sow consumer goodwill to patch in all this stuff that some might argue should have been there from the beginning. Sure, they expect you to buy it again for your next-gen system, but that's to be expected, I think. The only shitty thing, so far, is that there's going to be two versions of the PC edition, one with the updated graphics and one without. If I understand this correctly, it's because the old version of the game runs on DirectX 9, and the new version is going to be released on DirectX 11. As a result, the PC user base is going to be split between those playing the old version and those playing the new version. The Japanese website has confirmed that these player bases will be on different servers. Theoretically, PC is all one platform, and it is very odd that they're treating the two versions of the game as separate. But technically, it seems like this problem exists because updating a PC games with all its saves from a DX9 version to a DX11 version might be impossible. I don't know. I've heard that some games allow you to boot them up in DirectX 9 or DirectX 11. Maybe this is the route they should go with instead. And hopefully there is some sort of compromise made for the poor PC players who don't feel like buying the game again for updated graphics that their PC can already handle. But what do you guys think about all this? Let me know. Souls should be getting some good revivals in the coming months. In December, you'll be able to move your Dark Souls PC saves from Games for Windows Live to Steamworks. And in March, we're getting Bloodborne. And in April, we have a refreshed version of Dark Souls 2 to jump into. There's good times ahead, and if you haven't already, please subscribe so I can keep you up to date on all this stuff. And if you've already subscribed, then thank you for watching my videos, and I'll see you next time.